Back once again on K-Pan today with Erika from the Cricket. How you doing, Erika?
Hey there, guys. Hey, Heather. Hey, Corey.
How busy was it this week?
It was really, really busy, or the last couple of weeks. The lead story is very serious, and then we had a really fun, interesting story which one do you want to start with? The serious one or the one that I think is just
Yeah, start serious. Keep them
Yeah,
wondering.
since we're laughing our way through this, now let's start with a serious story.
let's lighten up later. All right. So, in all seriousness, there was some big moves that happened in the last couple of weeks in Manchester in the area of housing and affordable housing. So, we've talked a lot about the Manchester Affordable Housing Trust and about how they have been working on this strategy that they really have been painstakingly taking care of because it could be controversial, but they're doing it in a way that's so purposeful that they're bringing everyone along. It promises great change. It's taking the 4 properties that are connected to the town that already have, well, 3 of them already have controlled housing, affordable housing or low income housing on them. That's Loading Place Road. It is the Plains off Old Essex Road. And then on Pine Street is Newport Park, which is sort of for seniors. So, the 4th place is the DPW site, which is currently used by the DPW site. And the idea is that they would move that from Pleasant Street, which is right in the thick of a village, and they would move that over to 128 and Upper School Street where the compost is, which is Black Earth Compost has been using it. So Black Earth would move to the transfer station. The DPW would move to Black Earth on School Street. So John Feuerbach presented his plan and it's not his plan. It's, in all fairness, he would cringe if he heard that. It's the Manchester Affordable Housing with Manchester Housing Authority. They've worked together. They want to put out an RFP to a developer to virtually double the units on all of those sites to about 174 units. Currently, there are 84 units. So those need to be rehabbed, and then they would build others. They've been painstakingly working on this process with a consultant. They've worked out every single detail from environmental regs to states and grants, tax rights, how do banks work in this case, the whole thing, so that all of this will be financially sustainable, because right now it's not. Affordable housing of this type, subsidized housing, doesn't get money from the state for rehab. Do you know that? Or it's very little. They're changing that, but it's one of the things that is really a problem in Manchester, a big problem. So he presented that to the to the BOS, and really it was about the DPW site. Can you guarantee that that site is going to kind of free up and be available? Because there's some stickiness over on Upper School Street with the Black Earth the composting site moving. So it's RFPs all around. That is expected to go out midsummer, that RFP, which is going to promise this big change. And so they're reaching out to the neighborhoods now. They've already reached out to tenants to tell them what to expect about their rehabbed place. Will they move while the rehab is going on? All that stuff. That went really well. They had that meeting late in April, and now they're moving to the neighborhoods, which I think is really exciting. It's a lot to process. So that's number one.
Mhm.
Number two, 2 days later, the North Shore Community Development Coalition. I always want to say community committee or something like that. It's a
Yeah.
You're familiar with them because we talked about them. They're up in Camerons and they're working with Actioning to redevelop Camerons, which I thought it was just 11 units. It's more like 20 something.
Yes, more.
Also in Salem. They did the point in Salem.
Well, they're very, very involved in Salem and have a lot of projects. I had an interview with Mickey Northcutt, the CEO. He is the CEO of this organization that just bought 29 units in 3 buildings on Powder House Lane. It overlooks Sawmill Brook. It's a really beautiful spot. It's right downtown. The idea is that we're going to purchase this and migrate it over time to true affordable housing, 100% of those units. There was a drive locally with a citizens group to raise $1.5 million of the $3.7 million sale to make that purchase. And the closing happened 2 days after that BOS meeting with John Feuerbach. The reason why they're connected is that group approached the Manchester Affordable Housing and Housing Trust and asked them to be a pass-through for about $400,000, a little over $400,000 of that $1.5 million, because they wanted the town to be kind of integrated into this sale, because they wanted to use that to demonstrate that pass through to demonstrate support for this project. So the question is, does Powder House Lane connect or disrupt or change or adjust the Manchester Affordable Housing Trust strategy, right? That's the big question. The answer really is not really. I mean, John is careful about not saying, yeah, it has nothing to do with each other, but he does say they're on very different tracks, and they're on different tracks. First of all, the Powder House Lane project is going to be converting every one of those units to affordable low-income housing. Really, it's 80% AMI. That's what it's called. That's what it is. 80% of area median income. If you make that, you'll be able to live there. But that's over time, and they have to make sure that they're not kicking anybody out. They're not asking anybody to leave. They're not paying anybody to leave. I confirmed all those things. But and that should be good news to the tenants. But they are income certifying them. They're sort of processing them to see where they land in terms of their demographics. Many of them will qualify actually already for AMI. But does that mean that they will automatically be in a low income unit? That's not clear, actually. I asked John that question, and I'm asking, North Shore CDC, because there's a lottery process that goes through. North Shore CDC is going to use fair housing practices, which means that you have to market a unit for 60 days to, and you really have to favor underserved populations, minority populations, for fair housing. And that's what affordable housing and subsidized housing is all about. So if you're already there and you qualify, how do you get in the lottery? Because you don't automatically get in just because you're already there. And they can't, and I confirmed this with Mickey, you can't give preference to people just because they're here in the community, even though you'd love to. So that's sort of what's going on. A lot of stuff going on with housing. And it's interesting. I never would have thought 2 years ago that housing would be this much of an issue, and it is. So here we are.
So Erika, I just want to summarize. So the Manchester Affordable Housing Trust is trying to increase their available units from 84 to 174. Is that right? So we've got double that. And then the Powder House Lane is 29 units.
Yeah, but 29, let's talk about existing units versus new units, right?
Okay.
Because if you look at the housing production plan and if you look at the state's view of Manchester, they don't sit there and count. You don't get to say, oh, they've looked at all the units in Manchester. They've looked at 100% of the stock of Manchester, and they have said, Manchester really doesn't match its demographic. It's too many single family homes, not enough apartments, not enough what they would call smaller format housing for young people or for older people who are empty nesting and might need maybe a little casita or an apartment, right? And then also you go into a fixed income when you get older, or you just want to have a community that is able to accommodate its teachers, policemen, supermarket workers. So with all of that, they need to increase their stock. But back to the Affordable Housing Trust, of those 174 units, it's not like they're going to build 174 units. They already have 84 units. They're going to build an incremental, I think it's 90 units. And Powder House Lane already had people in it. That's not net new.
They've already been counted, right? Yeah.
They've already been counted. Yeah, exactly.
This is not reaching that.
Preserving it is a very noble action. It's a really noble action, because especially where real estate prices are going through the roof, having 29 units that we know are going to, over the next 20 years, become low income housing, that's fantastic. I mean, hopefully it'll happen less than 20 years, for God's sakes, but it'll happen as they naturally become free, as people move naturally. Suddenly this will be a unit that will be, okay, we're going to properly process this unit as low income.
Okay. All right.
And also, by the way, their idea is over time, they'll lower that 80% AMI. My understanding is that AMI was insisted by Eastern Bank, which is the bank that financed this. And by the way, this was all sort of triggered. I asked Mickey, where did this come from? How did you find Manchester, right? And he said that his a member of his board, the treasurer of his board, Frank Nitkowitz, is so he's on the board of directors of North Shore CDC. He's also on the board of directors of a lot of other North Shore CDC projects, all in Salem, like the ones you were talking about,
Right.
like maybe 5 or 6. But he's also the CFO of something called the Federal Federal Home Lending Bank of Boston, which I thought was like it was like a co-op bank, like a credit union. It's not. It's the Fed. It's the federal government. It's the federal, that sets the interest rates. The Fed.
Right.
Yeah, it's their local arm for housing, and it was formalized with housing in 2008 housing crisis. He's the CFO of that.
Wow.
So that's community home lending. And then he's also on the board of directors of SEMA, of the citizens group that is, that got the money to buy this. So it's like a very tight little,
So back to the citizens group. So they didn't help purchase the Powder House Lane property, right? It was
they did. They raised the money to give it to North Shore CDC, to donate it to North Shore CDC, but they went to the Affordable Housing Trust in March to say, we want some of that money to go through you.
Okay, that's what I wasn't clear about. All right, great. So 400,000 went.
417,000 of the 1.5 million went to the Manchester Affordable Housing Trust, earmarked. You couldn't use it for anything.
Okay, for the Powder House Lane.
So it was a power. You wrote a check to to Manchester Affordable Housing Trust, and it stayed with the Manchester Affordable Housing all of like 48 hours.
Okay, great.
And right to North Shore CDC.
Really interesting.
One thing that I thought was interesting, I asked Mickey as a follow-up question. I said, how much of that $1.5 million did you put down? Like how much was put down, and how, like you'd assume, $1.5 million. But the truth is, if Eastern Bank insisted, and I'm not an expert, by the way, I'm just thinking out loud. If Eastern Bank is the one that said they needed it to be 80% AMI, because everyone says, 80%, that's not affordable. That's a real thing that's going around in Manchester, that affordable shouldn't be AMI. And the Manchester Affordable Housing Trust would like it to be lower as well. So why 80%? I mean, Mickey Northcutt does things with all his other projects at well less than 80% AMI. Why?
Right.
And my only conclusion is they didn't put that much money down.
Yeah.
So the bank is insisting that it be they guarantee higher rents so that they can carry that nut, right? I mean, if you put 25% down on a house you're going to buy, your payments are lower than if you put 10% down.
Right.
So I don't know. And by the way, here's the thing. I asked Mickey Northcutt that question, or his PR person. He's got a PR agency.
Yeah.
They declined to answer. So I don't know. Anyway.
So they have to make up the difference somewhere, and it may be in AMI. Yeah.
That was a complicated story. I'm sorry it took so long, but
that's very onion trying to figure this stuff out. Yeah. Craziness. Yeah. And side note too, I believe Gloucester Crossing, some of those units are 80% AMI, and the Harbor Lake Village at the Cameron spot some units are 60% AMI, and they're involved with North Shore CDCs too. So okay, great stuff, Erika. Let's talk about another great Cape Ann experience.
Yeah.
There was paparazzi in town or what?
I love that. Well, this is something that's close to my heart because I was involved with setting it up. This was a former colleague of mine and I. It's from my past life. We did a test last year where just to kind of bring in press from outside of Cape Ann to turn them on to Cape Ann in a subtle, behind the scenes way, not in a way that's sort of like this grab bag, kind of schmooze fest, but just a quiet, under the radar, invite some press in and just let them experience what's great about Cape Ann. And it worked really well. So we did it again last week, and we had, for 3 days and 2 nights, we had just a small group of 10 people. They were from Architectural Digest, People Magazine, The Today Show, and Real Simple, Shape Magazine, Forbes. Like they were from some like pretty heavy places.
But not the Cape Ann Today Show.
That's it. Right. Which, by the way, bring that back. Aren't you bringing it back? So they were here and they loved it. And they did glass blowing at the Bubble Factory in Essex. They learned about the behind the scenes brewing from Great Brush Brewing Company. They had some incredible experiences. The highlight of the whole thing, they got a great behind the scenes tour of the Cape Ann Museum by Oliver Barker. That was awesome. They loved it. So they really got a sense of Cape Ann and what makes it different. But they went on the Thomas H. Lannon, right? Thomas H. Lannon? Okay. And before that, so they also they saw the Chef of Tono. They did a lot of great things. But when they went out on the Lannon, do you know Lenny Linquata? Does anybody not know Lenny Linquata?
In the Gloucester House, yep.
Lobster House, Blue Collar Lobster, right?
Yep.
So he brought out some mini lobster rolls from Blue Collar Lobster and delivered them by himself onto the boat. And he was just going to say hi. He was the star of the week. Yeah. In 10 minutes, I watched him because I was off to the side. In 10 minutes, he knew exactly who he was talking to. He said, "Where are you all from?" They said, "New York." He talked to them in 10 minutes about how there was a house they were going to pass in the Lannon, exactly where it was. And the guy who lives there created the "I Love New York" tagline. Then he told them about the First Amendment and the connection to the Unitarian Church in Gloucester. Then he talked about fine art in Gloucester. He talked about commercial fishing and Birdseye. In 10 minutes, he was by far the star of the show, and he's Mr. Gloucester. I was like, give that man a job. Give him a job. He's great.
I have seen him on one of the, like a really super busy evening in August, sit down on the banquette next to a 90-year-old lady and say, "Honey, how you doing?" When the restaurant was like crazy and she was waiting for her daughter to come pick her up or something. And he just sat down, "Honey, how you doing?" And he had a conversation. I thought that is hospitality.
Yeah.
I was blown away, actually, in all seriousness, because I didn't know. I mean, I had no expectation for what he would do. I just thought he was going to bring the lobster rolls and the Big Bang chicken. I mean, no, sorry, Big Bang shrimp.
Yeah.
It's much better than Big Bang chicken. But he was, in all seriousness, a total delight. And he made an imprint on them that I guarantee they'll never forget.
That's wonderful.
Nice.
So there you go.
Cheers to the Linquata family. And Erika, Memorial Day activities. What do we have going on?
Yeah, we have kind of that transition. We're in that transition time. Last year, it was all like closed and not a lot going on, although we did have a ceremony. If you remember, a lot of people's canceled them, not us. We're going to have this ceremony. It's going to be the full ceremony, but it's not going to be the full parade, and it's not going to be down on Rosedale. But there will be the full ceremony, which will probably take about 3 hours. Laying of the wreath, wreaths in the harbor, the reading of In Flanders Field, the response to Flanders Field, the whole thing, which will feel like we're getting back to normal. I hope next couple of weeks, let's start talking about all the stuff that's coming back this summer. It's going to be fantastic. Feels good.
Yeah, it does.
Great stuff as always, Erika. See you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.